Hello, my name's Annette with Sunbeam Fabric Art. Welcome to my channel. Today we're looking at a block called True Blue, and it's number 1656 in my encyclopedia. Now I just can't figure out why, but the 4 patch on the bottom row is turned the opposite way from the other 3. We're going to make the block just like this. But obviously, if you don't like the way that 4 patch is turned the opposite from the other 3 4 patches, you can make this block any way you want to. Let's talk about the fabric I'm using to make 2 complete blocks. First, I have 2 4.5-inch squares in the wedding dress fabric. Then I have 4 5-inch squares of dark, 4 5-inch squares of the wedding dress fabric. And last, I have 4 strips of dark and 4 strips of the wedding dress that are about 10 to 12 inches long and 2.5 inches wide. I'll leave all these measurements in the description, along with what to do if you don't have a long strip to use. My first step is to make half square triangles for the corner units of the block. I'm taking my wedding dress fabric. On the wrong side of a 5-inch square, I'm drawing a diagonal line corner to corner. Now I will place a dark 5-inch square right sides together with my 5-inch wedding dress square, and I am going to stitch a 1/4 inch away from that line I drew down both sides of the line. Next, I'm going to cut these units apart right on the line I drew, and there's my half square triangle. Make sure and test your wedding dress fabric, but in my case, I am pressing these open to the darker side, and I am putting a cloth, a pressing cloth, between my unit and my iron. I have a ruler with a diagonal line, which makes it easy to trim these half square triangle blocks. I line up that diagonal line with the seam. Then I make sure the block size I need is overhanging on the left and the bottom. I'm trimming mine to 4.5 inches. I trim on the right and I trim on the top. Next, I flip the block around the other way, line up with my 4.5-inch line on the left and the bottom, and keeping that diagonal line over the seam, I can trim the other 2 sides. Now we're going to make some strip sets to create our 4 patches. So I'm going to take a strip of wedding dress fabric, and I'm going to put it right sides together with one of my dark fabrics and stitch a 1/4 inch seam. Then I'm going to press that open to the darker side, again using my pressing cloth. With those strip sets pressed, I'm going to be trimming them into 2.5-inch widths. First, I gave myself a straight edge to go by, and then I just subdivided these strip sets into 2.5-inch widths. I lined up my seam with a horizontal line on my ruler. On this last strip set, I wanted to show you an alternative way to trim. I created my straight edge, but then I lined up my ruler with the 10-inch line. And I know I'm cutting into 2.5-inch strips, so as long as it's a multiple of 2.5, I can just slide my ruler from right to left and subtract 2.5 inches every time. So first I'm at 10 inches, then I'm at 7.5 inches, then I am at 5 inches, and last I'm at 2.5 inches. To make our 4-patch, we're going to take one of those units we just cut from the strip sets, put it together with another unit, but we're going to make sure the dark and the light are opposite from each other. Since we pressed all these strip sets to the darker side, we can use the nesting technique. We can slide these two seams together and they are going to catch or lock, and then I'm going to put a clip until I get to the sewing machine to stitch my 1/4 inch seam. Once we are done with that, we are ready to trim these 4 patches. Now, if you've done an excellent job, you may not have to trim much of anything, but I do like to take the time to go ahead and trim these blocks just to make sure. Since I'm trimming to 4.5 inches, I know that my middle seam should sit at 2.25 inches. Once the top and the right are trimmed, we can flip this unit around and trim the opposite sides, still keeping that 2.25 in mind, and also the left and the bottom can now be lining up at 4.5. Once all the units are trimmed, it's time to lay out this block. I'm starting with my 4 patches. They go around the outside in a T shape, but the one at the bottom is going the opposite way from the other 3. In the middle of the block, we'll place the 4.5 inch square of the wedding dress fabric. On the corners, we are placing the half square triangles with the dark fabric facing the inside of the block. Next, we'll stitch each row together individually, and then we'll stitch all 3 rows together to complete our block. As I put these rows together, I am using clips and the nesting technique to make sure these units line up. And here are my finished 2 blocks. This is block 6 of 10, just 4 more to go, and we are going to be ready to actually make this wedding dress quilt. Now I put this block into my computer because I wanted to play around with the colors and see if I could figure out why the original maker chose to turn that one 4-patch the opposite way. Nothing obvious popped out at me, so I'm really not sure. If you know, drop a comment and let me know. Either way, this block turned out very lovely, and I am excited to get closer and closer to the end of this wedding dress quilt. Thanks for joining me today, and I hope to see you back again real soon.